Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So calling this meeting to order. So in accordance with the Open Public Meetings NJSA 10-4-6, adequate notification of this meeting has been provided by advertising in the Courier News and posting notice in the Board of Education Administration Building and District Schools and filing notice with the Borough Clerk. I hereby call to order the regular public meeting Tuesday, January 28, 2025, in the Lincoln Middle School Cafetorium, 400 Dunellen Avenue at 7 p.m. This meeting is broadcast live. For details, check www.dunellenschools.org. Moving on to agenda item number 2, executive session. The Dunellen Board of Education will now adjourn into executive session to discuss items that fall within the specific exceptions to the Open Public Meetings Act, CNJSA 10-4-12B. The confidential matters discussed by the board during this executive session include items related to individual privacy, collective bargaining agreements, pending or anticipated litigation, and personnel. Any discussion that does not need to remain confidential will be made public as soon as it is practical. Minutes of the executive session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. All individuals who may be discussed in executive session have been adequately notified. Action will take place after the conclusion of the executive session. May I have a motion to move to executive session, please?
Move to go into executive session.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're in executive. See you in about 30 minutes, around 7:30. Okay, we are back. So, board members, looking for a motion to come back into public?
Move to go back to public.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So at this time, we're going to go to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will you all please remain standing for a moment of reflection and respect for our troops serving throughout the world, our troops who have served, and our troops who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the name of our United States of America. Thank you. Mr. Pepe, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Anderson,
Present.
Mrs. Condit,
Present.
Ms. Ibeck is absent. Dr. Gendrano,
Present.
Mrs. Howard,
Present.
Mr. Satinoy,
Present.
Ms. Schimpf is absent. Mrs. Shep,
Present.
Mr. Walker,
Here.
Student Rep. Jazara McLaughlin, and Student Rep. Douglas Guardaro.
Present.
We do have a quorum.
Wonderful. Moving on to item number 5. So looking for a motion to approve the minutes from both the December 17th board meeting as well as the January 7th board meeting, our reorganization. So looking for a motion to approve 5A and B.
Approve 5A and B. Second.
Open for questions, comments? Last call. Okay. Mr. Pepe, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Condit,
Yes.
Dr. Gendrano,
Yes.
Mrs. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Satinoy,
Yes.
Mrs. Shep,
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Fantastic. Moving on to item number 6, student recognition. I'll turn it over to Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Dr. Gendrano. Parents, students, it's wonderful to see you for this January board meeting, and very excited to recognize our January Students of the Month. So without further ado, I'm going to call up first, starting at Faber, our esteemed assistant principal, Miss Felicia Moody. And just so everyone's aware, the way that this works is that everyone from the school will come up, you'll hold your certificate, stay up in the front, and then parents will take a quick break, and you can all stand up and get good pictures and things like that so that nobody's rushed. All right? All right, Miss Moody, take it away.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to start with our special area student of the month this time from Mr. Sosa's class, Christopher Garcia Rojas. Yay! Christopher was unanimously voted by the special area teachers to be the student of the month. He shows a high level of competency in all his subject areas. He's respectful, completes his assignments, and is an engaged learner. He tries his best and is very kind. The special area teachers are honored to give Christopher this award for January. Our 5th grade student of the month is Avelina Learanio from Mrs. Mann's class. Avelina is being named the 5th grade student of the month. She's consistently demonstrated a positive attitude towards learning and helping her classmates. Whether it's excelling in class, participating in school activities, or showing kindness and respect to others, Avelina sets an example for her peers to follow. Keep up the amazing work. We are so proud of you. Yay. Our 4th grade student of the month is Isaac Gonzalez from Miss Delaney's class. Congratulations to Isaac on being named Student of the Month. He consistently demonstrates a strong work ethic in the classroom. He's incredibly polite and respectful towards his teachers and takes our suggestions, feedback, and advice to heart. He takes responsibility for his learning and participates in class discussions. His willingness to share his work with others shows that he will support his classmates in their success. He's a valuable member of the classroom, and we are so proud of you. Congratulations, Isaac. Okay, we have 2 for 3rd grade. Our first 3rd grade student is Alexa Figueroa Lopez. Here you go, Alexa. Alexa is a hardworking student who is always thoughtful and kind. She can always be counted on for her positive attitude and determination. She comes to school ready to learn and excited. She looks out for her classmates and always lends a helping hand when someone is struggling. Congratulations, Alexa. Also from 3rd grade, we have Wesley Davenport. So Wesley was chosen by his classmates, and they had some things they wanted to make sure everybody knew. He never takes a play off with his homework, and that helps the team grade go up. He's getting high grades in the class, and that's why his team gets really good grades. He is a good teammate to everybody, and he's very nice to everyone. He's very kind, and he gets hundreds on all his tests, which helps his team. Congratulations, Wesley. Our 2nd grade student of the month is Emma Duque. Hi, Emma. Go ahead, girlfriend. Emma is new to Faber this year and an outstanding student to have in class. She works very hard every day while working to learn English. She's kind and friendly student to all those and looks out for her classmates. Congratulations, Emma. Our 1st grade student of the month is Donovan Dossel. Yay, come on, Donovan. You want to stand right here? Hold this for me. Thank you. Okay. Donovan has made huge improvements since September, and he continues to strive hard. He's working to follow the directions a lot more. He follows the structure and routine in the classroom and is very nice to his friends. His teachers are very proud of how far he's come. Congratulations, Donovan. Our kindergarten student of the month is Michael Kowalik. I don't think he's here. Okay. Well, Michael is an incredible friend and role model in his kindergarten class. His kindness shines through in everything he does, whether it's sharing his toys or helping his classmates with a tricky puzzle or cheering on his friends during activities. He sets a wonderful example of patience, teamwork, and empathy and inspires his classmates to be their best selves. Congratulations, Michael. And our pre-K student of the month is Allison Sante Ramirez. Good job, girlfriend. Okay, here we go. Allison has made significant progress in her social emotional development, fine motor skills, and is working extra hard to advance on the English language. She's kind to all her friends and goes above and beyond to help open snacks or put on jackets. She's a pleasure to have in class, and her teachers can't wait to see her flourish. Congratulations, Allison. Yay! These are your Faber students of the month.
All right, thank you, Ms. Moody. We're going to move to the middle school. So, Mr. Altmeyer, please come on up.
Thank you and good evening, all. We have 3 students here that we would like to recognize from Lincoln Middle School this evening. And the one thing I always like to share is the fact that this is done by committee. It's not just one person making that selection, which makes it even more special for this person to be recognized. Our first recipient in 6th grade is Dylan Vera. Please come forward. Dylan is cooperative and respectful. He is friendly and personable both in and out of the classroom. Dylan is conscientious about the work he produces. He assists his peers when necessary. Dylan actively participates in classroom discussions and activities. Keep up the outstanding work, Dylan. Our 7th grade recipient is Brandon Ramirez Argueta. The 7th grade teachers would like to congratulate Brandon for being recognized as our Student of the Month. He is always working very hard in all of his classes and is making great progress in learning English. Brandon is very helpful to his classmates. He is always willing to work with his fellow English language learners and take time to explain the activities. Every day, Brandon comes to school with a positive attitude. Additionally, he is always respectful and kind to his peers and his teachers. Congratulations, Brandon. And finally, our 8th grade recipient, Stefania Vasquez Estrada. Stefania, congratulations. Stefania is this month's 8th grade Student of the Month. She is a hardworking and dedicated student who consistently puts forth her best effort in all of her assignments. Stefania holds herself and her peers accountable, ensuring that everyone stays on track and meets expectations. With a positive attitude, she approaches each day with enthusiasm and encourages others to do the same. Stefania is always attentive in class, actively participating and offering assistance to her classmates whenever needed. Her contributions truly help to make LMS a supportive and productive learning environment. Congratulations, Stefania, and keep up the excellent work. Congratulations to all 3 individuals for being identified as Students of the Month, and thank you for being the role models that you are at LMS. Hold on, guys.
All right, thank you, Mr. Altmeyer. Last certainly but not least, Mr. Lynch from Dunellen High School.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce our Students of the Month for Dunellen High School. Our 9th grade Student of the Month, Sienna Fucito. Sienna's had a great start to her high school career. She started off the year with cheerleading. She is the class president for the 9th grade. She is in all honors classes, and she had a huge impact on me in probably the first month or so because she has 2 outstanding siblings, and as she said to me, she's the best of the 3. So she has big shoes to fill, and I'm not sure whether they agree with her or not, but she's done a great job so far in the high school. So 9th grade Student of the Month, Sienna Fucito. Our 10th grade Student of the Month, Nicholas Bradshaw. Nicholas is having another great school year this year. He's got some honors classes. He works very hard in all of his classes. He has a great group of friends, and one of the things I really enjoy about his group of friends, they're such a nice group, but they also have some mean games of Uno during lunch. It's very competitive with one another, and they all get along really well. He doesn't admit to being the best Uno player, but they all have a really good time together. And we're happy to have Nicholas at the high school. Nicholas Bradshaw. Our 11th grade student of the month, Brian Villacrez. Brian's another one of these amazingly hard workers. He's done such a great job. Came to the United States a bunch of years ago, learned the language, has moved himself from CP classes even onto the honors track. He decided to start playing musical instrument. He's now in the band. He decided to go out for the play. He's in the play, and he does the choir. So he's so well-rounded, and he's done so much in his just 2.5 years here at the high school, and we're very much looking forward to what he has to do the remainder of the years. So, Brian Villacrez. And our 12th grade student of the month, Fabiana Ames. Fabiana is truly one of the nicest people we have in the high school. Such a sweet student. She's in honors and AP classes, works very hard. In order for her to get here tonight, I had to make sure we talked to the basketball coach because she's on the varsity team and practice usually ends at 7:30. And we wanted to make sure she could get here in time. She's been a starter on the varsity team and works incredibly hard with her squad. She's only one of a few seniors that they have on the team, and we hope they have continued success this year. Our senior student of the month, Fabiana Ames.
So thank you to the administrators. Thank you, parents. Congratulations, students. It's quite an honor. We're very happy to have you here. We are going to take a little break just so that folks can file out if you'd like. We do have a long meeting ahead of us. You're certainly welcome to stay, but I know tomorrow is a school day, so we're going to take 5 right now. All right? Thank you and congratulations again.
All righty. Yeah. All right, so we're going to move to the next section of the agenda. Actually, is this even the next section of the agenda, or is it the president's report? All right.
I know that Anthony's going to come in the next 10 minutes too, and then I'm going to be aggravated. And
You can always change the order if you want.
you're the president. You can do whatever.
Okay.
You're the superintendent.
All right.
Yeah, I have a boss in this room though.
All right, then. Welcome, everyone. We're at the Dunellen Board of Education meeting. That's our first officially scheduled board meeting for 2025. So for those who may be joining us here for the first time, the Dunellen Board of Education is the governing body of the school district. We donate our time out of a deep compassion for our students and work to make decisions based on what we believe will best help all of our students be successful. The board meets once a month here in the cafetorium for a public meeting that covers school district updates, an update from our student representatives, student recognitions, and important presentations. Our agendas are posted prior to the meeting on the Dunellen School District website, along with past agendas and attachments. And I invite you to join us in our monthly discussion. I wanted to take a moment to congratulate again all the students who were recognized this evening. We're very proud of the accomplishments, and please keep up the good work. Staying healthy, always a big topic for me. It's important to underscore that healthy kids means healthy schools, which means a healthy community. Bottom line, we encourage you to take the common sense hygienic precautions and stay current with vaccinations to minimize the spread of infectious diseases that can really impact our school year. And if kids are sick, keep them home so that they don't spread. Monthly celebrations. So January, as we're exiting January, we celebrated Martin Luther King's birthday on the 15th. We had the National Day of Racial Healing on the 16th. 27th of January was Holocaust Remembrance Day. And it was also School Board Recognition Month. February, looking forward to February, Black History Month, as well as Lunar New Year. And all this is to underscore the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the fabric of our daily lives and the impact that that has on our community. Open, honest, and equitable communication that is respectful, positive, supportive, fair, and most of all, kind, goes a long way in strengthening a community. As we embark on 2025, I think it's important to acknowledge all of the hard work and be thankful for all the progress we made in 2024. A lot was accomplished, and for that I'm grateful, but we have plenty more to do. Looking forward to 2025, indeed we will encounter new challenges, and I'm confident we will rise to the occasion. I'm excited for all the possibilities the changes we've made this time, since this time last year afford us, especially the changes that will move our school district forward and put us on the better path to success. I cannot wait to see what 2025 brings, and I'm glad we as a board and our Dunellen community are continuing to work together to achieve that success. Lastly, I want to thank the community for your support and confidence giving us board members the opportunity to serve the Dunellen community. I would like to thank my fellow board members for electing me to another term. As president, it's my honor and privilege to serve as Board of Education president for 2025. Let's go, 2025. Thanks everyone for your time and listening. Moving on to Mr. Ross and the superintendent's report.
All right, so I'm going to start the superintendent's report with just a brief district goals mid-year update. This is something that I've done each of the first, this would be the third one. And really the focus here is to try to just provide a little bit of information about where we are in the goal setting process at this point. So this presentation is available online. It is on the district website, on the board minutes page, or board meeting agendas page. And a lot of this information some of this information appeared in the presentation from November, so I'm not going to go through it super deeply, but I will focus on a couple of slides. So for all of these presentations, we really have the same objectives, which is identify the district goals, recognize how they serve as a cornerstone to our operations, and then understand our progress monitoring process moving forward. So here are our district goals. Right, and this year we moved to 4 district goals. We previously were at 3. We added community engagement, and we modified number 3 to become operational efficiency. And basically, again, the district goals identify our key focus areas and serve as the foundation of our work. So we have been in a process of kind of setting goals and sort of throwing whatever works at the wall. And we are in a much more aligned system of improvement this year. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. There's a full presentation about our alignment process. But really, our work this year has been about simplifying the work that we do, especially at the board level, at central office level, and at the administrative level, so that our priorities are really aligned from the district to the classroom. And this really has the effect on students, right, ultimately, but also on what's happening in the classroom in terms of instructional priorities and materials, in terms of what's happening at the administrative level with meeting time and administrative goals and PLC goals and PDPs. And then in the business office and our operational fluency with budgeting, PD, grants, and board goals. So this alignment has been stronger this year. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, and certainly looking forward to continuing this approach in the future. So the cascade of district goals, again, I outlined this very, very closely in November, but we start with our goals. We then look at our measurable impacts. That's substantive numbers that we want to improve on very specific things, which we'll talk about in the next slide, or I'll address in the next slide. The actions that are associated with that. So if we want to improve our test scores in certain area by 5 points, what are the things that will be helpful for us to do, right? What must we do in order for those changes to occur? And then our action evidence is, what is the evidence that those steps have been occurring? This is an accountability piece of it, but it also helps those who set the goals, which is right now the administrative team, understand how they can best articulate the fact that they took the actions and that those actions impacted the goals. So this is a really linear process, which I think has helped clarify the work for everyone. And essentially, the strategic actions are the behaviors that we want to see. So if, for example, as superintendent, I want the principals to become really fluent in data analysis, right, that is a strategic action that has to be associated with one of the impacts. And that allows me the ability to hold administrators accountable for that work. Similarly, principals can do the same with their staff, and similarly, again, staff can do that with their students. So District Goal 1, academic success and data use, these are the impacts. I've simplified these a little bit, and again, the full district goals are outlined on the website. But you can see that in the academic success goal, Faber is looking at Tier 1 and Tier 2 performance on iReady, Lincoln Middle School is looking at Linkit, and the high school is looking at the end of year NJSLA Algebra 1 scores. And so key drivers for this, and this is really kind of what this update is going to focus on, just these bullets. Assessment literacy for students and teachers. This has been a process of working with staff members and working with students to understand the value of assessment. We have district committees that are working on this. We have regular meetings that are taking place at each of the schools. We've had teachers who have talked about student progress monitoring, so that the kids themselves are monitoring how they're doing on Linkit and iReady. There's been a celebration of students or classes where there's been substantial growth, and that's the type of thing, that type of assessment literacy is really what we're driving at. Data analysis protocols is something that we've been working on, especially in meeting time, and really trying to get the administrators to lead this work and develop real competency with it. So data analysis is obviously essential to understand why kids are doing well in certain areas, but perhaps identify the areas that students are not, and whether that's a classroom level issue, it's a curriculum level issue, it's a grade level issue, it is a prior year learning issue. Those are all things that need to be addressed. So part of that process relates to the third bullet, which is professional learning communities. This is now in place at Faber, where there has been grade level meetings, professional learning community meetings, conversations and after school meetings where there's been conversation about data. Standards have been analyzed and will continue to be sort of broken apart, and the meeting time is used to identify perhaps gaps in the curriculum or novel ways of instructing on a particular topic that might be challenging for kids, or just talking about data generally. The tiered systems of support has been a really strong driver for this, and this is on the academic side. Tiered systems identifies students that need additional support, and what we've been able to do is provide intervention in the classroom, in almost every classroom, so that kids don't get pulled out from their core instruction. And that has allowed students to learn in the least restrictive environment and has been very good for overall academic development, grade-wise. Continuous improvement cycles is our process of just basically regularly reviewing this information. So when we look at academic success, we can't just look at the day after students take the assessment in September and then again in January. This has to be a regular data cycle where there's conversations and there's a recognition that this is work that's ongoing. Obviously, the teachers know this because they're doing this work on a daily basis, but administration has to establish meaningful time for this work to take place so that that everybody understands how important this is. So that's goal 1. Goal 2 is very similar, right? Faber, LMS, we're looking at principal and teacher referrals. The high school is looking at chronic absenteeism. This is really school climate and culture based, just sort of generally. So we're talking about improved processes for teacher responses to behavior. Classroom management has been a point of conversation, especially in 612. How can teachers approach classrooms positively to work positively with their students? What mechanisms are there to support teachers who have students that might not be feeling it on a particular day, right? So that we're not removing students from a learning environment, but rather providing them with supports. We've looked at incentives and different types of celebrations or things like that that can be provided. This incentives idea is obviously very strong at the elementary level. When we get to 612, there's this sort of sense that students don't respond as well to incentives, but we certainly know as adults we respond to incentives. And so just understanding that and working with students at these grade levels to find ways to motivate them has definitely been something we've explored and has shown some early success. Increased counseling support and student surveys. As you all know, the Lincoln Middle School added a second counselor this year. We've been doing student surveys through Urban Assembly, where we've asked students about various SEL related competencies. That second set of surveys will be administered shortly, and then we look at student progress through these areas and kind of our responses to that. Attendance monitoring is something that we do regularly. We do need to probably get better at this, but this is one piece of this, especially when we look at chronic absenteeism. Tiered system of supports for social emotional wellness. We implemented our school-based wellness counselor program this year as we moved away from Thrive, and those folks have seen a growing caseload of what would be considered Tier 3 students. So that's been helpful. We also have counselors who are teaching SEL lessons in the classrooms. And so again, the goal is to get as much instruction to as many students in the general classroom environment, and then provide additional supports for those students that need them. And then continuous improvement in this area as well. Operational efficiency, we have some business office goals and a facilities planning life cycle goal. So staff training and processes has been probably the most important thing. How do we get the right process in place to ensure that vendors get paid, that invoices get paid, that requisitions get processed, et cetera. Development of standard operating procedures has been also something that Mr. Pepe's worked very well on. And then the continuous improvement cycles here is really about looking at the data on a monthly basis, meeting regularly with team members, and having conversations about where we might be still have some things falling through the cracks or some areas of additional focus. Community engagement, we have 2 goals. One is increasing the number of parents who participate in the comprehensive needs assessment. The other is about a human resources goal, which is defining the employee life cycle process. So we've done a lot of proactive parent outreach. Obviously this year we transitioned to Parent Square, which has been helpful in terms of general messaging. We've done a ton of parent and community sessions on a wide range of topics. We're still exploring ways to engage parents. We had some sessions where there's been 50 parents, and we've had some where there have been 3. And so understanding the difference between those things and what works and what doesn't work, this is going to be, sort of our ongoing challenge, and not just our challenge, but kind of the challenge everywhere. And then the development of key areas of focus and needs assessment. This, in terms of the employee life cycle process especially, is what do staff members know? What do they need to know? What do we communicate regularly? Is there an easy place for staff members to find meaningful information? Do they have the right people to contact? I think we've done a lot better with this over the last couple of years, but there's still a lot more to do. We're in the development process for a staff handbook, which will be kind of a living document, but which everyone will have access to, which will address all of these things and really serve as just a central database for any staff member questions resource. So we have quarterly and annual impact tracking. The colors are a little bit washed out here, but basically these are the impacts, and this is the way that we are tracking our goals. So each quarter, we're looking at the impacts, and we're looking at whether the work that we're doing is putting us on track to meet that impact, if we're slightly off track, or if we have not yet started that work. So I can tell you, because the colors don't look great here, we have a couple of items that are slightly off track. The Algebra 1 work was a little slow to get off the ground in Q1, but we are working on it well now. The Facilities Life Cycle Planning Guide is something that we've also picked some steam up on, and as well the Employee Life Cycle Process and associated materials. All the other work is on track. We are meeting for our Q2 review at the end of February, and I'll provide some more updates and information at that point. But as you can tell, again, this has become very systematized work. There's a lot of clarity for everybody that's involved about what is expected of them, about what we are measuring, why we're measuring it. It is really agreed upon, mutually agreed upon, really high leverage pieces of what we do on a daily basis, and I'm happy to share this information with you. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll provide another update in a couple of months.
So for the algebra area where you have slightly off track, what is it going to take to get us on track, and how far really are we off on that?
Yeah, so the work at the beginning, so the algebra indicator is actually that's sort of it's not a lagging indicator. It is an indicator that we won't have complete data on by the end of the school year because we won't have the test scores. But a lot of the work that's focused in Algebra 1 is about changing the instructional approach in that class and in our math classes generally. And so the teachers have been really engaged in a process that's related to what's called a thinking classroom, which is where students are much more actively engaged. They're up and around. They're using whiteboards sort of around the room. Their thinking becomes very visible. It's much more collaborative as opposed to a teacher-led type of lesson. And that work is underway. Mr. Tobin's doing a great job of leading it. We didn't really start that work in September, October, and so that's where we're sort of slightly off track. The framework was there, and the work has now been accelerated, but we did just it was just a slow start. And so in trying to really be honest about our work, it's important that we recognize where we really kind of hit the ground running, right? With iReady and Link It testing, that's just like we're just on it. And then some areas where we're a little slower to get started.
So a two-part question. Because of the demographics that are changing here in the town, does that have some impact on being on track or off track? And then the second part would be, we have a lot of students who are artistically inclined. Do we see a disparity between lower scores and higher scores?
So the question of being on track or off track is about process much more than it is outcomes. So where we have mid-year testing, like the Q2 results will be much more about outcomes for iReady and Link It because we will have mid-year assessment data. But some of the other things will be much more process-oriented, employee life cycle, operational types of things, that sort of thing. So demographics wouldn't affect that. When we look at setting goals, when goals are set, we know who our students are who are going to be testing. So that's already factored in. I don't quite understand the second question about students who are artistically
It
inclined.
was just something that I read in terms of percentages with artistically inclined students. Some of the higher performers would skew some of the scores because they would also score higher in the math areas.
I am not aware that there's any study that shows that students who are artistically inclined do better in math.
I've got to go. I found it someplace like a while back.
Okay. I mean, it's an interesting idea. There are a lot of people who pick up art because they can't stand math. And probably there are a lot of people that where math and art are some sort of overlap in an interesting Venn diagram. But I'm not sure that would be enough to skew our data.
Just to clarify, that goal is related to ninth graders currently in Algebra 1, not eighth graders that are in Algebra 1.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So a large portion, there are a lot of eighth graders that take the Algebra 1 test, maybe more so than ninth graders?
There are more ninth graders who take it.
Mhm.
There are more eighth graders who pass it.
Yeah, I was going to say the eighth grade results were quite good.
They're better.
Comparatively, yes. I think just, knowing traditionally the students who take algebra in ninth grade are maybe on a different path in math, so they're students that need more support, and it's important that we're focusing on raising the expectations for that group because it's such a vital, they need to know the subject matter for various tests that they'll be taking.
It is, and if you look at, again, the goal is the starting point and the end point. So last year, 3.5% of our high school algebra cohort achieved a score of met expectations or higher. So, I mean, that is not good, right? And that means that we've got only really up to go, right? So we're going to try some additional, some instructional methodology. Obviously, we've got Link It now, we've got iReady in place, and there's a lot more data, there's a lot more curricular conversations happening. The teachers have been good throughout. They just need the support and the structure that's been provided. So definitely looking forward to seeing those outcomes. Bless you. Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate it. More on this to come in the future. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to transition now to Anthony Ardito. Anthony Ardito has been the district auditor for at least 10 years, at least 20, okay, so about 10 years. And he is here to present on our annual audit, as he does every year. And I'm going to, there you go. All right, Mr. Ardito. Yeah, how are you? Good to see you.
Thank you, Dan. I'm going to just hand out some paper copies also. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we have it on the screen here. But we'll go through the presentation. This is a high-level presentation. Give you the financial overview of the school as of 6/30/24. I know you're in fiscal 25 now, but this is last year's audit. We finished up the audit back in the fall, early or late fall, and so we're going to just go over a little bit of this accounting of the district. But before we go over the accounting of the district, I have a few accounting jokes for you. So what do accountants suffer from that ordinary people don't? Depreciation. So what do you call a trial balance that's not in balance? A long night. This is in the old days when we had green ledger pads. We had to add everything by hand. So, okay, so the last one is, whoops, I got that off track there. But we have a good one here. What do you call an accountant without a spreadsheet? Lost. Completely lost. Okay, so we're going to go to our first slide here, and you could stop me at any time and ask me questions. This is your governmental fund expenditures by function. Your governmental fund includes both your general fund that you base your tax rate on, your budget. It also includes your special revenue fund where you spend all of your taxes, all of your grants, I'm sorry, and your capital projects fund where you spend projects like your referendum project, your Farber classroom project. And the fourth thing is your debt service fund. So you took out bonds a number of years ago and you're servicing those bonds. So those four funds are combined in this governmental fund chart here. So instruction we see here at the very bottom left, a little bit over $10 million, 24.4% of your instructional pie. That's teachers' salaries and direct classroom supplies. It doesn't include benefits, and we'll get to benefits as we go around the chart. If we just go clockwise, tuition, $1,423,000. That's mostly special ed tuition. You have private schools for the disabled in there. You have other special ed students being transported to other school districts in the state. Support, there's a lot of things in support. $2,271,000. You have an improvement of instruction, libraries, child study teams, a big component of that, attendance, health services, related services, extra services, the library, guidance, staff, training is in there. So that support piece of pie is everything that supports the instruction function. Right above that is general and admin, almost $2.3 million, 5.5% of your governmental pie here. And I say this every year, you're doing a great job of containing that G&A cost. The typical percentage that a New Jersey school shows is about 8%. So you're well below the average of a typical New Jersey school. And that not only includes your Board of Ed costs, your front office, back office, secretarial, your chief school administrator, principals, assistant principals, but it also includes all of your information technology is in there, your telecommunications, your legal costs, your audit costs are all in that G&A slice right there. Plant and maintenance right above that, that's kind of obvious. It's everything that needs to be spent to maintain your physical plants of all your schools, salaries for the custodians, and also non-salary things like insurance, utilities, everything to keep everything running, cleaning and repair and maintenance. Transportation, that's mostly special ed transportation. Right next to that is something called on-behalf benefits. Now, in governmental accounting, you have to show what the state spends for you on your behalf for the teachers' pensions and the teachers' post-retirement health plan. So the state of New Jersey spent almost $4.8 million on those benefits. So governmental accounting says we have to show that as an expenditure, and we show the same exact dollar amount as a revenue. So they offset each other. So it doesn't affect your budget. You don't actually spend this money. It doesn't affect your fund balance. But if you look at your annual comprehensive report, you'll see a big number in there, $4.8 million. So that's in there as a revenue and an expenditure. Employee benefits right next to that, almost $4.5 million, mostly health insurance. 3.7 million of that is health insurance. The rest is payroll taxes, Social Security match, things of that nature. The PERS payment that you make for the PERS employees for their pension. You make that contribution every year, tuition, sick time, and things of that nature, and employee benefits. Special revenue off to the right, this number is all of your grant spending. Your title programs, your IDEA, your ARP. You remember ESSER 1, 2, and 3. ARP is ESSER 3. All the Corona-19 era grants are embedded in special revenue. So that's coming to an end. So you were pretty much spent of all those Corona grants at the end of fiscal 24. Those programs lasted until September 30th, so that's over with. And from an auditor's perspective, I'm very glad of that because we don't have to deal with that anymore. It was a very intense auditing issue because it's a high-risk program, and the federal government needs a single audit done on all those programs. So we're glad it's over, but you guys probably aren't. You'd like the funding to continue. Debt service right below that, almost $2.6 million. That's on your 2 bond issues in 2012 and in 2020. You did the referendum, so you're spending that money going forward, and that ends in 2035. So you have a little bit of little long road to pay that debt service off. Right below that is capital outlay, and you've had some significant projects going on in the last few years, mainly the Faber classroom addition and the continuing referendum project. That's what that represents right there. So this governmental fund expenditures for this year, it's a little bit over $41 million. And if we go to the next slide, we just track that actual expenditure, which is the green line there. And we strip out of there capital projects and those on-behalf benefits I talked about. On behalf, you don't pay for them. And capital projects are one-time situations. So you could see that the green line is going up, and the blue line is your 2020 expenditures adjusted for inflation. So as we know, inflation has been increasing over the years. It's going to up about 20% since 2020. So your run rate has been higher than inflation. So why is that? So we have a lot of different revenues coming into the school, and we'll check this out in the next slide. Your state aid has increased significantly over the years, and you've been able to utilize that in order to maintain your curriculum, increase teacher salaries, go on a plan of making sure you're competitive in the marketplace. So if we switch to the next page, we could see where revenues are. Now these are the revenues that cover those expenditures that we just talked about. So in that red bar in the middle, that's your tax levy. It's been pretty stable. You've been able to keep it stable, and you can see that the orange triangles there is your state aid. And you can see how that's increasing over the years. So between 23 and 24, you've had like a $3.5 million increase in state aid, both in equalization aid. You had almost a $500,000 preschool education aid influx in there, and that's going to increase next year also. So you're utilizing that state aid in order to maintain your expenditure programs. After that, there's not a lot of funding. At the very bottom, you could see the black line there, and that's federal revenue. That's all of your grant receipts that you received. And you have a small little blue line, which is your local revenue, which is starting to increase due to the fact that we're now earning interest on our bank accounts. In the past, we have not done that since 2008 through, probably 2 years ago, there was no interest to be made. So now you have a large chunk of your money invested in, it's the ARM program, which the state of New Jersey says you can invest in, and you're earning a lot of interest on that. About $497,000. Next page is your, whoops. Next page is your excess surplus. I'm messing up this here. Sorry about that. Excess surplus. So excess surplus is you're only allowed to have 2% of your expenditures recorded as unreserved surplus. So unreserved is it's unencumbered. You could spend it on whatever you want to spend it on. You're only allowed 2%. Your number is hovering around $750,000. That's the red bar there. That's your 2%. You've come in consistently higher than the maximum amount that you're allowed. So this past year, in fiscal 24, you're $1.7 million higher than the maximum. So that's called excess surplus. The previous year, you could see you were almost 1.6 million. That excess surplus gets put into the following budget, and it's called going back to the taxpayers. So that money gets put in by the Department of Ed. So this is a source of revenue that you have to use to support your expenditures. So 1.7 million will be an excess surplus that goes into your fiscal 26 budget that you're going to start working on in a few months. 1.5 million was the amount that went into your fiscal 25 budget. So you're, for apples to apples, you're basically replacing those funds that you used in your fiscal 25 budget. Next page, we have all of your fund balance components. So down at the very bottom is the unrestricted fund balance. That's the maximum that we talked about on the previous slide, $753,000. But that's not all of your components. Right above that is the 1.7 million that we talked about that was excess. Above that is the 1.55 million that's earmarked for fiscal 25. So we're at June 30th, 24 here in this slide, and fiscal 25 hasn't kicked off yet. So you have to reserve for that 1.5 million also to make sure that that's available when fiscal 25 starts. We have encumbrances. That's a fancy governmental name for open purchase orders. You issue purchase orders, and no services have been rendered, nothing's been delivered, but you have to encumber that money so when you spend it in fiscal 25, it's available. And then your biggest piece of the pie, capital reserve, almost 4.4 million. So you started off the year with 1.8 million in capital reserve. And then you withdrew 988,000 of that to help pay for debt service. Part of that, every year you withdraw about that same amount to pay for debt service, along with your state aid and tax levies. And then you added back $3.5 million. So remember we talked about your large increase in state aid and revenue coming into the district. Every June you pass a resolution that says any excess revenues, any excess or unspent appropriations, expenditures, we can plow back into capital reserve. So you pass that resolution, so you put $3.5 million back in there. So you went from 1.8, now you're at 4.4 almost. So your situation from a financial standpoint is looking pretty. The district is in a great great financial position. It has plenty of reserves to go forward. And these capital reserves are unearmarked. You could use them for future projects. The Faber project and the referendum project, they're already funded. So this $4.4 million sets you up for the future. And I think your fiscal 26 budget should be fairly easy to balance now that you have $1.7 million going in there to fund that from the excess surplus from this year. We completed the audit back in October, and I'm happy to report there's no audit findings this year, no administrative findings. We had a few findings last year, but they've all been cleared, and it's everything's a clean audit this year. So congratulations to the admin staff, Rich and his team, and Dan and his team. So good days in Dunellen. Any questions for me?
I was just going to ask if there was anything that we could keep doing better. I mean, it sounds great, but there's always room for improvement, right? Are there other things that we can do to improve our?
Yeah, I think you're in a unique situation with your funding sources. I think financially, I don't think you could do anything better. From a internal control and accounting standpoint, last year we had some issues with bank reconciliations and some account reconciliations on the balance sheet, but they've been cleared. So if we were to say that you can do something better, I think we would have an audit recommendation, and we don't. I think I wouldn't say that you can do anything better. You're welcome. Okay, well, no other questions. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. So good stuff with the audit. Again, thank you to Rich and the whole business office team for their very clean work throughout this year and getting all the paperwork done for the audit. So very much appreciated. Yes. Cheers. And just to sort of roll that conversation up, we have been talking about this year's the budget for fiscal year 26, which is the 25-26 school year. All of our budget managers have met with Mr. Pepe, and there's been conversation about the requests and the kinds of things we need to be focusing on. Obviously, we are in good shape with capital reserve, which is excellent. We do have the facilities expansion project that we're doing at Faber, which is going to pull $2.6 million out of capital reserve. And so that's a known project, which now we are sure that we can fund, and then we will just continue to preserve all the things that we're doing curriculum-wise, staffing-wise, find areas where we can increase support for students or improve the things that we're doing. And more updates on the budget will be provided in February. We will get our state aid notice at the end of February, very likely after our meeting. And so then in March will sort of be a mad dash to put together the first kind of picture of what the budget will look like. But for February, we will have a sense of what happens if we have a cut in state aid or whether we have flat state aid. I don't think that we're anticipating any increase in state aid anymore. And I know that there is some concern about potential cuts in state aid pretty much across the state. We do anticipate seeing a pretty large increase again in our preschool expansion aid. as we move from the 7 classes that we have to 11 classes, potentially even 12 classes next year. So that's going to be a really significant add in terms of revenue, which is obviously allocated directly to preschool and can't be used for general use items. But yeah, but in general, we're in very good shape. I'm glad that Mr. Ardito was happy with the work that we're doing, and we'll share more on that as we move forward. So next in my report, I'm going to turn it over to Douglas for the student report.
Well, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. It's nice to see every one of you again. So for this report, I really tried to make it as quick as possible and also to put all the information that is most relevant for all 3 schools. I wasn't able to get that much information from Lincoln Middle School. I'm going to try to get more for the next report as well as for Faber. So for this report, I'm going to start with the Dunellen High School part. So for Dunellen High School, we ended December with our winter break. The students shared that they really enjoyed their time off and got some stress out of their backs. Starting January, I observed tension between students since midterms were coming up. Not a lot of students get excited about midterms coming up because they just came back from break and they don't want to have to deal with all the workload of having to study and having to deal with the classes. So I think they were a little bit stressed about it, but they came from break, so they are supposed to have the stress already off their backs. Teachers gave support and also the necessary tools for students to succeed. In today's society, students do have a lack of focus on school matters. There are a lot of factors that affect a student's performance. I am working with my team in the Executive Council to see what approach is the most effective to bring academic awareness and success to our students at DHS. As of right now, there is not much activity from class councils. The school store is open on a daily basis and seems to be going great. The Executive Student Council continues its searches of businesses that want to collaborate with us in having partner-up fundraisers with each grade level. Also, the Executive Student Council is looking forward to increasing the student participation based on student feedback. We are brainstorming ideas and considering key aspects for the correct approach of students' needs and also to be able to provide positions of leadership for a greater number of students. For Dunellen High School and Lincoln Middle School, there are 20 students who have successfully completed the ENL program. From personal experience, I am extremely proud of those who exceeded the program, along with our currently enrolled ENL students. Learning a second language can be challenging. Mastering it is even more difficult. Speaking from experience, the skill set acquired from this is extremely beneficial in that it increases opportunities and also opens a variety of doors for those who seek success. I think that this is really significant since we are getting a higher amount of students completely exiting the ENL program. Also, they are approaching like a higher level of understanding of the language, which is going to make it easy for them and also give them a better understanding on the subjects. And I think this is a great job. I really admire the work from Dunellen School District that they are doing, the approach that they have with the English learners, and also they really give us the tools necessary for each student to succeed in the classes. From Lincoln Middle School, again, I don't have that much information. I just know that the number of the 20 students that are exiting the ENL program, there is 10 from Dunellen High School and 10 from Lincoln Middle School. I know that LMS is focusing a lot on the academic concepts. The classes are getting into deepest material, and students are doing great. They seem to be performing good on the classes, having good scores, also having a good environment. Everyone seems to be going into the school year. We're already mid-school year, so I think for LMS, everything is going great. from Favor, they also held the ENL's exit celebration on January 16. They had 16 students exiting the ENL program, which I think is great. And I think this number is just going to keep getting higher since we have excellent ENL programs. And I really hope to see a higher number of students exiting this ENL program, because I know that there is going to be also more students coming to the district as the years goes by. So if the students are able to successfully exit the program, then we're going to have also the space for the new students to go in the program. The Student Council over at Favor ran a food drive and donations went to the St. John Evangelist Church. Also, they held a staff versus student basketball game for readathon, and the students raised $1,100, which I think is great for Favor students to do that already. They are young and they are already making those kind of collecting that kind of money, which I think is going to make it easy for them to, as they go into grade levels higher than that, for them to get into class activities and also fundraise money for their classes easier. This is what I have for this report. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Douglas. And I just want to thank you for pointing out the success of the ESL program. I know it is very personal to you, and we've had a lot of conversations about that. When I was talking to Mr. Lynch today before our admin team meeting, and he mentioned that it was about 10 years ago, the high school had 340 students, and there were, I think, 13 ESL students. And now we're over 200. The high school has 425 students or something like that, and we have over 200 English language learners in the district. So, and we have 2 dedicated full-time staff members at the high school, 2 at the middle school, and 4 at Faber. And we probably need more. So it is, it's something that we've looked very closely at in terms of staffing. We've also transitioned our programming completely from what had been previously a pull-out model to a real push-in model, so that students are learning in, they're in an environment where English is being spoken for most of the day, which obviously we know that's how you actually learn a language. So there's obviously more to come on that, but it's great work. We've done a lot of celebrations with the families, with the students, and I think I shared this last year when I attended one of the breakfasts, and there were parents that were crying, just out of how proud they were because of their kids' successes. And we don't think about this. If you're a native English speaker, if you're from this country, you don't recognize the privilege of speaking the language, right, that is spoken around you. And when you don't speak that language, the challenges that you face. And so to be able to demonstrate proficiency and just recognize that, that's one step towards integration into kind of the cultural society is, I think, really important. So I'm very proud of our team. I'm proud of our leadership. And, again, I thank you for calling that out. So. All right, so I'm going to talk about a couple of other topics. I guess I'll just start here with immigration and just kind of where we are. I was just reading my phone. I just got a series of messages about a funding plan. There was a memo that came out last night at about 5 p.m. that halted all federal funding for public schools in certain areas. A judge just put that on hold at 5 p.m. tonight, and so that was federal funding related to IDEA and Title I. So we are in this world of sort of chaos at the moment, and we all have personal political views, and everybody's personal political views are fine to have, but as a superintendent of a school district, the chaos is really disconcerting. And what is really essential to communicate is that our job as administrators, as as the superintendent, as the board, as teachers, is to provide a safe and secure learning environment for our students. And that's it. That's all that it is, right? Fundamentally, that's what we have to do. Whether we feel a certain way or not, that is our responsibility as an organization. And there is a lot of fear within our community and within the communities of neighboring towns. We obviously have a large Hispanic population in this district, as do many of our neighbors. But many of our neighbors also have large South Asian populations or East Asian populations. And anybody who is in any sort of immigrant community or anybody that looks different is feeling some level of anxiety. So when we think about the responsibility that we have as a school district, right, what is critical to understand is that we will not be complicit with, we will always comply with the law, right? We will always follow the rules and responsibilities that we have with regard to the law, but we will always also protect our students where we can. And so there has been guidance that was promoted by the Department of Education, which has been shared out to school districts, which I've shared with my staff and my administrative team. We had a conversation today at our administrative meeting about it. And essentially, Immigration and Customs Enforcement has the right to enter public schools under certain circumstances. If they have a judicial warrant, or if there are exigent circumstances, those agents have the right and are able to enter a school building. In all other circumstances, their right is contingent on what documentation they have and our willingness to allow those folks in. And it is the Department of Education's guidance that school districts understand this very closely, that if someone comes to the door and claims they are from somewhere, or that they have some sort of documentation, that documentation be reviewed first and foremost, referred to the superintendent, referred then to legal counsel, and then a decision can be made at that time. But our students, right, we rely on our students feeling comfortable to come into school every day. And we rely on our parents to feel comfortable dropping their kids off and attending evening events and those sorts of things. We cannot function unless those things are in place. And so we will do everything in our power to ensure that that sense of calm and security remains. Now, I have not sent a message out to the parent community because it's just a very hard message to send. I haven't quite figured out exactly what to say, because a message that's too simple really does miss a lot of the important details, but a message that is too detailed is just very hard to comprehend. And so I'm trying to figure out what the balance is. If I do decide to send something out, it will really strike that balance to kind of set our values and make those values very clear. Also provide links for those who are more interested in learning. But for our staff members, I have sent a message out that basically outlines what the expectations are, what the directives are from my office. We have an incredible staff. The staff is very supportive of our students. We haven't had any issues like you may have heard about in Texas, where there was a teacher that called ICE and said, "You should come to my school." Right? We don't have staff members like that, or even anybody who would think like that. Our staff members have been incredibly supportive of our students, and I know that they will continue to be. And so, this whole thing is new to superintendents. It's yet another bizarre thing that we have to sort of manage as educators and as educational leaders. But as information comes out, I will keep the board apprised. I'll keep certainly the teachers apprised and the association apprised, and parents as well. And if we see any drop-off in participation in terms of attendance or families at events, then we will recognize that we need to be a little bit more proactive in expressing those values to folks so that they feel comfortable coming to school. So does anybody have any thoughts on that, comments on that?
Having previously served under the DHS and having been a military officer working with Customs, Border Protection, and ICE, there is a priority list, and the situation that we would be in would be on the lowest priority of that list. My personal analysis on it is the priorities will be clear and present danger to the United States of America, which would be high-level criminals as well as anything that is characterized as a terroristic group. So those are the priorities. ICE is not that big of an organization, so the priority list will take care of the top-level imminent danger to what they'd say to the economy. They also have a public perception component that they are aware of. So they don't just show up. They have to coordinate with local authorities as per the documentation and legal the law that's out there already. So they cannot come in and just barge their way in. So there is, from a previous experience, a certain level that they have to go through, as well as respect for the local authority and local jurisdiction. So in terms of having a conversation, I've had conversations with a couple kids who have expired green cards, and I just told them that they can relax as long as they're not on a government threat list, or if they're not hardened criminals and convicted of federal crimes. They really don't have that much to worry about.
I will say that I hope that everything that you said is right. I'm skeptical that it is. I heard an interview today with an official who talked about the fact that, yes, they're looking at folks who have been, convicted of felonies and that sort of thing. The commentary was that other people will get swept up as part of this, right, as just a natural course of things. I think there's a level of impunity that probably exists currently. And the question, of course, of how much of that. Okay. All right. Great to see you. It's like none of us. It's like an episode of Seinfeld is like Kramer, right? But there seems to be, and again, the question of reality and perception, right, is a really big one. But I think that there is as much as we would like to tell people to remain calm, I think vigilance is especially important. And I think for me, it's about clarifying expectations. So even if nothing ever happens, people will understand what they should have done had something happened. And I would much rather err on that side of things. With the hope, of course, that our little community is just bypassed, as are many of our neighbors. But we do know that there have been raids in New Brunswick, North Plainfield, I think Plainfield, right? I have a friend that works at a charter school in Jersey City. I mean, that's so.
That's Jersey City.
It is Jersey City, just like
high-level terrorist watch lists are present in Jersey City. So, take it with a level that they're looking at. So there's a lot of visibility on the DHS side within Jersey City.
Yeah. Like I said, I hope that you're right, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, sorry. I do agree, Dan. I think it's really important that while we'd all like to hope for the best, none of us work for these agencies and are part of the conversations that are happening. And I think it's great to offer support and encouragement and try and establish that sense of safety, but also in being realistic that we don't know what the agenda is and what it amounts to. And that's a very fine line to walk, to make promises that we can't keep. I was wondering, with Ms. Jimenez working with families in the community, have we had any feedback from anyone in terms of concerns or vocalizing distress about sending their children to school?
So I haven't heard of families who have articulated stress about sending their kids to school, but I know that kids have expressed concern about coming to school. And so that's an issue. Now kids are saying this in school, right? So it's good, they're coming to school. And we hope that they continue to come to school. But there is that sense of, if I leave home, what will happen? What will happen to my mom if she drops me off? Which was another story that I heard today about a woman who dropped her child off at school and then was picked up. So I mean, the anxiety is real. I think again, I started my comments on this topic by saying we're in a time of chaos, which is, it's a purposeful form of chaos that sort of just puts people on edge. And I don't know what's going to happen. But I think that all we can do is, of course, control the things that we can control. And that's providing some sense of safety and security within our walls, and kind of just continuing business as usual, with the understanding that there is this underlying stress level that students may be experiencing. All right, so that's about the heaviest topic that I probably will ever cover in a superintendent's report, or hopefully it is. I'm going to move on to some lighter things. We had 11 students were accepted at Arts High Middle, which is the arts program that the county puts together. So 3 students from the high school, Janine, Adrian, Zarina Corton, and Hunter Mulligan, were accepted at the high school. At the middle school, Gabriela Cardenas, Sonia Diaz, Dylan Dow, Priya Gotra, Bridget Gomez, Celeste Gomez, Derek Hernandez, and Kayla Husak. So these folks will be doing, it's either an 11 or a 12-week program, depending on high school or middle school, at Middlesex County College. It's this real like magnet program of cool things with really great people and great instructors that the district supports in full. And this is something that we brought in my first year, and we've been very good partners with them. So congratulations to those students and their families. We have really been doing a ton of professional development, training, and coaching, which I think is worth mentioning. We have a PD day next Thursday, which is a half PD day in the afternoon. We've also been doing administrator training on professional learning communities. So we've had 3 sessions with Jonna Lee, and this is about how meetings can be run more efficiently. This has been very strong feedback from the Teacher Climate and Culture Grant Committee, strong feedback from conversations I've had with teachers throughout the district and the association about the fact that we have time that is set aside for meetings, and that sometimes those meetings might be less effective than they could be. Part of the PLC process is also about allowing teachers to lead meetings and understand what meeting protocols can be used for, valuable sessions to be held, and how data can be analyzed during that process. And so that's training the administrators are going through, and then they'll be rolling this out to their staff in the sort of later winter. PLCs already exist at Faber, which has been very successful in terms of understanding data and understanding question types on assessments and those sorts of things. But that'll be refined. After school meeting time will be refined, and then all of the stuff that's happening 6-12 will also continue to be refined. We have a lot of instructional coaching that's happening. Ashley Powell, who is our district instructional coach, she's doing 6-12 work. She's been doing drop-in professional development days. Our school-based wellness counselors have also done those days. They just actually had their first one, and there's more planned. We're doing sheltered English instruction, which is general education teachers learning best practices in working with English language learners or multilingual learners. That's being provided by Up the Bar. And then we have Deanna Opatoski, who's been doing small group instruction at Faber, and Jason Erdreich, who has been our excellent STEM and computer science consultant, has continued his work. We have foundations training happening in February, and we also just partnered with the New Jersey Coalition for Inclusive Education, which is going to really focus on direct coaching to staff on best practices for co-teaching environments, because prior to really last year, we did not have special education teachers providing the collaborative learning environment. It was almost entirely based on paraprofessionals. And so having hired a number of special education teachers and putting that model in place has allowed us to take students from a more restrictive environment of a resource room and bring them back into a whole general classroom environment. And, you know, again, the goal is to try to figure out the best ways that those collaborative teaching pairs can work together. We also have our after-school programs starting soon. We have our after-school coordinators who are approved already, Abby Franklin for the Faber program and Jessica McCarthy, who's doing the middle school, high school programs. We have a ton of teachers who are being approved, actually, I think on this agenda to work those programs. So I'm very, very thankful for the very large number of staff members who have indicated an interest and who have expressed a willingness to work through those programs for our students. We've been doing a lot of family engagement nights as well. Ms. Hoy has been working with NJ4S on a series of parent night events, which have been really interesting. We've also done literacy events, we've done a number of preschool events, and we'll continue to try to get parents out to build that homeschool connection. I talked about budgeting already, so I'll skip that. Universal Pre-K grant info. We've talked about this a little bit. Certainly the project of $6 million is going to be funded by $3.5 million or so from the state, and the remainder will be paid for through capital reserve. We had an original timeline that we need to adjust, primarily because of the availability of steel. And so we will share a revised timeline with the public when that becomes available. We have some concerns we have to address: noise, construction, the location of the playground at Faber, and some rooms that may need to be relocated. But all of that information will be shared when it is available. And then the last thing that I have is just that I had my second meeting with the working group on educator evaluation today. So I was in Trenton this morning. The group that I'm working with is the SGO group. And it comprises, I'm the superintendent on the group. There are 5 superintendents in the probably 40 folks that are involved overall. Our group is about 8 people or thereabouts. And the goal is really to try to reimagine what educator evaluation looks like. The way that the Department of Education has its evaluation program is that it comes from statute first and foremost. The Achieve NJ is the name of the statute that was passed in the Christie administration. A series of regulations was then created from the statute that's called Teach NJ. That's regulations that are approved by the State Board of Education, guided by the department. And then there's this guidance that's provided about what you do with those regulations. When the regulations were created, the State Board of Education sort of out of whole cloth created something called student growth objectives, which we all know as SGOs, which has been in place for about 10 years. So from that regulation, the department had to then create guidelines for teachers and districts to create these SGOs, and they put out a couple of ideas, some templates and some guidance and things like that, and districts basically said, okay, this is what we're going to do. They took the department's guidance as the only thing that they could do, and now we're in this process where every district does SGOs, using this sort of form that, you know, where students are tiered by their baseline data levels, and there's extraordinary amount of paperwork, and usually the assessment that's used in a sort of pre and post-test environment is an artificial assessment. It's not actually something that is inherent in the class itself. It's a tremendous amount of time for teaching staff members. It's also a tremendous amount of time for administrators. And the sort of effectiveness of this model is very limited at best. I will say that the creation of the SGO process was, I think, very valuable for the idea that we should be thinking about student data, right? Just fundamentally, we should be thinking about data on students. And there's been a lot of normed assessments. Linkit sort of has come up a lot, but STAR and MAP and iReady and other platforms that have been really helpful in identifying student strengths and weaknesses. So this is a good thing. The implementation of SGOs is basically, it's dead. So this year there was a law that was passed, or for this school year, that at the SGO implementation was paused, which meant that the student growth objective score that people got last year was their same score this year, which of course was terrible if people didn't do well on their SGOs last year. It was fine for people who did well this year. It is likely that the SGO process will be paused again for 1 year, and then after that it might be revamped or whatever it is. My group and the rest of these folks are involved in reimagining what these student growth objectives should look like. And we've had a lot of really valuable conversations. On this group are NJEA representatives, district administrators, school administrators, other teachers. We have the State Teacher of the Year from 2024. And it's been very valuable to understand the fact that kind of everybody feels like the current model is just broken, and then what can we do instead? There are also two other working group components. One is about just general waivers to, or not waivers, I guess equivalencies to the evaluation frameworks. So there are a bunch of approved evaluation frameworks that the state has, and then the question is, in what other ways could we evaluate teachers? That's what one group is looking at. And the other one is the highly effective teachers model, which is if you're a teacher who scores in the highly effective range, how can your evaluation the subsequent year be different or easier or more interesting than the sort of traditional model? So this is what the group's working on. We have, I think, maybe 6 or 7 more sessions, but I just wanted to report out on that. It's a really collaborative, really interesting group of people, and I'm very excited to be a part of the work. So with that, that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ross. All right, moving on to item number 9. Moving on to item number 9, board appointments. So with this one here, I'll just go ahead and read it first, right? Yeah. So for item number 9, I'm gonna ask for a motion in just a minute, but just wanted to read this out first before asking for that motion. So it's the motion, or the resolution is, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Dunellen Board of Education approves the following board appointments for 2025. So the folks for these individual titles, for New Jersey School Boards Association delegate, I'm proposing Mrs. Guadalupe Condit. For the New Jersey School Boards Association alternate, I'm proposing Ms. Sarah Ibach. And for the Middlesex County School Boards Association delegate, I'm proposing Mr. Jason Anderson. So that's the resolution. So at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve those titles and the folks in those positions. Oh, sure. Go ahead, Mr.
Just for the board members, I just want to clarify the process because this is a little different than the past. I did some research and looked at our bylaws, and the bylaw actually requires that these 3 positions be appointed by the board, which is why we're putting it on here. Noel has made his recommendations, and we're asking you to approve those so that the board has appointed these 3 positions.
That's right. So at this time, I'm looking for a motion to approve that resolution as I just read it.
Move to approve the resolution as noted.
Second.
Okay, open for questions or comments. Okay.
If a person was nominated, do they have to not vote?
Mr.
No, you can vote for yourself. I mean, a person could vote for themselves, yes.
So last call, questions, comments?
You can also vote no for yourself.
Although, I don't know if you could abstain. I mean, so, okay. So last call, question and comments? Okay. So Mr. Pepe, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Condit,
Yes.
Dr. Gendrano,
Yes.
Mrs. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Satinoy,
Yes.
Mrs. Shep,
Yes.
and Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, wonderful. Moving on to item number 10, public comments on agenda items only. So the board invites public comment on agenda items only from members of our community in accordance with Board Policy 0167. Public comment sections are intended to provide an opportunity for members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. The board and administration will be taking notes during public comment, but will not provide substantive responses to questions or concerns raised by individual speakers. If necessary, the superintendent may provide a brief response after the entire public comment period is completed. The board appreciates and welcomes feedback from the community, but is not at liberty to engage in a back and forth dialogue with members of the public during this portion of the meeting. Prior to making your public comment, please state your name and municipality. Please note that all statements must be directed to the presiding officer. Please come to the microphone at this time if you'd like to make comments on agenda items only. Last call. Okay. Oh, the GMC terrain? Yeah, let's see. Okay, so moving on to item number 11, education discussion items. I'll turn it over to the Education Committee Chair, Mrs. Howard.
Hi, thank you. The Education Committee met on January 21st at 6 p.m. Present, well, I was not present. Ms. Schimpf was there, Ms. It's Ibach? Is that what?
Ibach, yeah.
Ibach. Dr. Gendrano, Ms. Japkin, and Mr. Ross. The Education Committee discussed a number of items, including a wide range of updates from Ms. Japkin regarding professional development, curricular initiatives, after-school programming, committee work, and grant-funded activities, instructional walkthroughs being completed by teams of administrators across the district, preschool expansion efforts and plans for next year, and a variety of confidential matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Howard. So moving on to item number 12, education action items. So looking for a motion to approve 12A, B, and C.
Approve 12A through C.
Second.
Okay. Open for questions or comments. Note that the 2025-2026 district calendar is on there in item C. Okay, last call. All right. Mr. Pepe, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Anderson,
Yes to A and B, no to C.
Mrs. Condit,
Yes.
Dr. Gendrano,
Yes.
Mrs. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Satinoy,
Yes.
Mrs. Shep,
Yes.
and Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 13, personnel discussion items, and the Personnel Committee report. I'll read that here. So the Personnel Committee met on January 21st. In attendance were myself as chair, Mr. Anderson, Mrs. Shep, and Mr. Ross. And we discussed a number of items, including staffing and evaluation for the current school year, items related to the work of the district security coordinator, and a number of confidential items. Moving on to item 14, personnel action items. Looking for a motion to approve 14A through L as a block.
Approve 14A through L.
Second.
All right. Open for questions or comments? Got to say, I like the all of the staff travel for PD. That's great. Have to say that. Last call. All right. Mr. Pepe, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Condit,
Yes.
Dr. Gendrano,
Yes.
Mrs. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Sa'anoy,
Yes.
Mrs. Shep,
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, wonderful. Moving on to item number 15, operations, discussion items, and the operations committee report. I'll turn it over to the chair of the operations committee, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Dr. Gendrano. The Operations Committee met on January 22nd at 7 p.m. I was present along with Ms. Condit, Mr. Sa'anoy, Mr. Gendrano, Mr. Pepe, Mr. Ross. The Operations Committee discussed facilities work ongoing throughout the district, information about the district's universal pre-K facilities expansion grant, the FY24 audit, which was just outlined by Mr. Adito, and which appears on tonight's agenda for approval, budget planning for the 25-26 school year, and a variety of confidential matters. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. So moving on to item number 16, operations action items. Looking for a motion to approve items 16A through P as a block.
Move to approve items A through P as a block.
Second.
Okay, open for questions or comments. First, I just would like to say for item H, I would like to thank Mrs. Moore, Dr. Stark Gendrano, and the entire PTO for the generous donation of $9,000 for field trips for our kids. I think that's fantastic. That's a wonderful donation. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Mr. Pepe, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Condit,
Yes.
Dr. Gendrano,
Yes.
Mrs. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Sa'anoy,
Yes.
Mrs. Shep,
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, moving on to item number 17, old business. I think we have a couple things here we wanted to address. First, the calendar. Please go ahead, Mr. Ross.
Yeah, so we, Ms. Shep pointed out that April 15th is during spring break, and that is our planned April board meeting date for 2025. So we need to adopt a new calendar of board meeting dates. So I have, I printed out the one that we approved, and basically the only change is that needs to be made is on the fourth line, changing April 15th to April 8th, which is the Tuesday before spring break. So that would be my recommendation.
Any discussion? Okay. So can I have a motion to approve that change to the board meeting dates, changing April 15th, 2025 to April 8th, 2025?
Motion to approve change in board meeting date. Is that it?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Pepe, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Condit,
Yes.
Dr. Gendrano,
Yes.
Mrs. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Sa'anoy,
Yes.
Mrs. Shep,
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Continuing on with old business. Any other old business to? I was going to mention that I think when we met last time, we also went through the committees. I just wanted to take a moment to just recognize, I believe it's already on the website, but to recognize who's on the various committees. So, in fact, you've heard everyone speak already, but just to put it out there. For the Education Committee, Mrs. Howard is chairing the committee this year, with Ms. Eibach and Ms. Schimpf joining. I'm ex officio. For the Operations Committee, Mr. Walker is the chair again, Mr. Sa'anoy and Mrs. Condit. of joining. For personnel, I'm continuing on as chair of the Personnel Committee. In addition, Mrs. Shep and Mr. Anderson are joining. And for the Negotiations Committee, Mr. Walker's chairing that. I hope he's still okay with that. Awesome. And Ms. Schimpf, as well as Mr. Satanoy, will be joining as well. So lots to do on those fronts. But I wanted to just make sure that we're all aware and it was out in the record who's on the various committees. We kind of already knew it, but let's just state it publicly and make it transparent. Any other old business that anyone would like to talk about? Okay, moving on to new business. I did want to just mention. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Pepe. Next board meeting on the 25th. Mary Ann Friedman will be joining us.
Yes, we need to get back to her with what the topic will be, but yes, she does have us on her calendar.
That's right. So, Mary Ann Friedman, just for those who may remember, is our New Jersey School Boards. Bless you, New Jersey School Boards Association Field Service Rep. She's back with us now after going away for a little while to another county, but she's back with us now and has agreed to come and join us for a presentation of our choosing. So I will circulate after this meeting a list of all the different presentations that NJSBA provides, and maybe make some recommendations, and we can chat in terms of which one in specific we would like her, to provide to us. I think last year we did ethics. So we could do that one again, or maybe there's some other one that may be more timely. But just to note that she will be joining us next time, and we've secured that date, but we need to give her a topic, specify a topic for her to present on. So, any questions?
Maybe we can move the board meeting.
Okay. Any other new business?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I just wanted to mention, last week I sent an email in regards to possibilities for federal grants for emergency management and conducting drills, to leverage that for an opportunity to purchase emergency communication equipment and/or tools, also to provide educational opportunities for emergency responses and other supporting crisis for students. So the educational exercises as well as emergency management exercises are part of Homeland Security. They're available in coordination with local law enforcement and local support services and emergency management. So if if we can coordinate with our local emergency management groups, that would be a great opportunity to leverage full-scale exercises to obtain some of those grants to work on supporting our infrastructure as well as education and supporting our students.
Thank you, Mr. Satanoy. That's good. Make sure we get that into the record.
Just a question.
Go ahead.
Who did you send an email to? You just said you sent an email.
Yes, I sent the email to Mr. Ross and Mr. Gendrano.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Dr. Gendrano, sorry.
Yes. Okay. Okay, any other new business that anyone would like to talk about? Okay, so closing up that section, moving on to section 19, President's remarks. I'll stick with what I said before, and nothing to add. Item number 20, public comments on any issue, any topic. The board invites public comment on any issue or topic from members of our community in accordance with Board Policy 0167. Public comment sections are intended to provide an opportunity for members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. The Board of Administration will be taking notes during public comments, but will not provide substantive responses to questions or concerns raised by individual speakers. If necessary, the superintendent may provide a brief response after the entire public comment period is completed. The board appreciates and welcomes feedback from the community, but is not at liberty to engage in a back-and-forth dialogue with members of the public during this portion of the meeting. Prior to making your public comment, please state your name and municipality. Please note that all statements must be directed to the presiding officer. Please come to the microphone at this time if you'd like to make a comment on any issue or any topic. Last call. Okay. We don't need an executive session, right? Okay. So we will go through and skip item 21, and we will go right to item 22, which is adjournment. So looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We'll see you in a month, February 25th.